Hello, welcome back to the Sideboard here at the Regional Championship, part of SCG Portland. I'm Nick Miller, alongside Theo Jung, playing Orzhov Blink, a deck you have helped put on the map. What started out as a joke has now become a real player in the format.
Yeah, how it started was I was in the mood to play a modern challenge. It was me and a couple buddies in the call, and I found this taxes looking deck, and I played a lot of this style deck in Legacy. I always love casting Aether Vials, so I'm like, I'm gonna have some fun and play this deck in the challenge. And obviously my friends were just laughing at me when this wasn't a known quantity. It's like, you're gonna play Aether Vial in 2025? It's like, are you stupid? And then I'm just like, okay, well, if I win this challenge, I'll go to Portland, and
you did.
Play this deck, and I did. So, and then I won another challenge online after that. So, yeah, I think this deck's pretty real. Feels pretty decent. So
now, a lot of your friends will say you would have won these challenges with any deck, but
yeah,
would you say the deck overperformed, or was this kind of pilot power?
I don't think it's pilot power, really. I think that deck genuinely does some powerful things. I think Overlord of the Baelmerk is a very good card. Lots of ways to blink it. It's like, formerly these types of decks would be very anemic without the presence of Aether Vial in your opener, but you have another set of draws that actually give you a pretty great start. It's like Velia plus Overlord or Flickerwisp plus Overlord, can give you these sort of cheating on mana starts that you wouldn't otherwise have.
All right, so take us through the deck here. We have the core, we have the blink components, which are Aether Vial and Ephemerate, which allow you to get this value and kind of be tricky. You touched on the Overlord, but also we have Emperor of Bones, and this is the card that really stood out to me when I see this card doing things. You, however, have trimmed this week to a couple of copies.
So I'm playing 2 Emperor Bones, and a large part of that is because I think it's largely a non-card in the Breach matchup, which I expected to be pretty popular. I boarded out there, and I don't think it's a very good play on turn 2. It's sometimes against Energy you have Emperor Bones in your hand on 2. It's and you can't really run it out, but you kind of want to play something on turn 2. So yeah, it's I think it has diminishing returns if you play too many copies, and when it just becomes Grizzly Bears, it's not really a card you want to have in your deck.
We've got Orcish Bowmasters is just all-star card in the format. But then the real engine here, we've got Thelia, and we got Recruiter of the Guard, we have Flickerwisp, and then you can take us through all these tutor targets and then the utility cards that you're really generating the value from.
Yeah, so I have 2 Bowmasters this weekend. I think that's more of a concession to Energy than anything else. I saw data from last week's set of RCs and saw that Black-White Blink was only winning 46% against Boros Energy, which, I thought was a good matchup. A lot of people have been cutting Bowmasters, and I think it's reflected in that. It's if you don't have push, you're forced to use a Solitude on an Ocelot Pride or maybe a Ragavan, and having Orcish Bowmasters in your opener sort of mitigates that need. So yeah, and I can talk a little bit about the core of the deck, which is 3 Recruiter, 3 Flickerwisp, 4 Felia, 4 Overlord. Yeah, that's your core engine, and it gives you a lot of selection, a lot of maneuverability to tutor your key cards in a lot of specific matchups.
And we've got, some graveyard hate with the Bogart Trawler. We've got, a disenchant creature, land, and then you have your targets as well. Take us through, the Aven Interrupter, the Skyclave Apparition, and so on.
Yeah, Aven Interrupter, all-star against Breach and Storm. Largely, its relevant part of text is that spells your opponent cast from graveyards or exile cost 2 more to cast until end of turn. So against those decks, in addition to having the ETB, it's also just a hate piece, so which has been great. White Orchid Phantom against big mana decks. It's a Ghost Quarter effect on a stick. Skyclave Apparition, I've debated cutting, but also there's specific permanents that are pretty popular right now that this deck has a hard time answering without it. So for instance, it's Flip the Johnny, for example. You can't answer it with Witch Enchanter. If it's already flipped, you can't Solitude it or push it. So the only option you really have to answer that cleanly is tutoring Skyclave off Recruiter. Right. So I found those sorts of things come up. It's it's the areas where you're missing coverage, Skyclave sort of fills the holes. And Tide Hollow Sculler, it's a favorite card of mine. I like to call it the mascot of the deck. a lot of people have cut it, but I've like tutored for it enough times, like when I have a Violon 2 and I have like a Recruiter, that I think it's like worth the slot. It's not like horrendous to draw either, especially in conjunction with Ephemerate. So, yeah.
And after the last round of RCs, we saw the deck take second place in Canada, I believe. Yeah. How do you feel its position going in now that people know it's a real deck and they're adjusting for you as well?
Yeah, I think it definitely gets a little tougher for you if you're like a known quantity, because it's like people can have like specific answers to Overlord, and as people get more reps in against the deck, like they'll know how to play against it better. So, for example, like during the early times when I was playing this deck, people would board in Graveyard Hate against you because they would see Overlord, but that's actually not like an ideal thing to do, because Overlord like selects from the 4 milled among them to return to your hand. So as this deck is played more, I assume we'll see like less of people doing that and more like hate cards like Torpor Orb. I know some people have Elish Norn in their sideboard for the mirror in this deck. So, yeah.
Speaking of sideboards, we've got some Thoughtseizes, we got some Wrath of the Skies, additional tutor targets. Anything you want to call out here that's super important?
No, I feel like it's pretty standard. I wanted the third Thoughtseize is like the change I made to have more coverage against like Eldrazi. I don't think I wanted like another card for maybe like Breach or Storm or any other like Titan or any other combo deck, but I also wanted like another sideboard card against Eldrazi when I was mapping out the sideboard. So yeah, the third Thoughtseize seemed like the best hedge.
Orim's Chant, a card that has gained a lot of popularity. Another card that kind of goes alongside Aether Vial and I haven't seen in forever.
Yeah, Orim's Chant's a fun one. It's largely for Breach. I like playing it over Surgical. It's basically just like counterspell for Underworld Breach, and when you're just playing these long games, like I have it over Surgical, and a Breach player can like maneuver around Surgical at the point of the game where they're trying to combo off against Black-White a lot of the time is what I found. So having Orim's Chant as sort of like a hard counter to Breach, like I found to be pretty helpful.
Well, you're off to a 2-0 start here in Portland. Have you told your friends anything that's going to happen if you win this tournament? Do you have to play the deck somewhere else, or?
I assume if I win this tournament, regardless of any bet, I keep playing it. So, yeah.
All right, we're off to a great start. Thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to Star City Games all week long for the action here in Portland.